You've got three parties, right? Okay, over here you have, this is the seller. All right, so this is the seller, and they've got their house. All right, they got their little house right there. Pardon the not that clear drawing, but there's your little house. All right, so there's your motivated seller. You got your window. All right, then you've got party B here. All right, which is you. All right, this is you, the wholesaler. All right, and what you're going to do is you are going to, this is a contract, you're going to get the property under contract. Okay, so we're going to have a contract, and this is going to be contract to buy, right? And there's your contract, and they're going to sign it, and you're going to sign it. All right, and there's your price, terms, and everything, right? So you got your contract. All right, and then you've got over here, you've got the investor. All right, so this is the investor, or cash buyer, kind of synonymous, right? And so then what you're going to do is you're going to assign your contract to the investor. Okay, so now you're going to assign this, and here's our contract with our investor, and this is the assignment. All right, and what's going to happen, all right, we'll put some dollar signs in here, because what's going to happen is essentially the contract you have with the seller is assignable. All right, so this will say assignable, right? Assignable. All right, so part of the terms of your contract with the seller is that you're able to assign it to an investor or some other entity. Okay, so then once you assign it, this will have your assignment fee is listed in the assignment. So it'll say, you know, wholesaler, investor, yourself has this property under contract with the seller, and he or she is going to assign it to the investor for the assignment fee. Okay, so now, right, the contract really is now directly between the seller and the buyer. Well, I shouldn't say the contract. I don't want to confuse you, because we're going to talk about novations in the next module, but this will be the closing, right? So on the closing, at the closing, all right, you've got the settlement statement, right? So here's your HUD, right? There's your HUD 1, also known as an ALTA or just settlement statement, right? There's your HUD 1. Oh, let me make this a little bit straighter. And then you've got the seller on here, and then you've got the investor. All right. So the seller's name, the seller is the seller, right? But the buyer now, instead of it being you, it will be the investor, right? Because you've assigned your assignable contract, you've assigned your contract with the seller to the cash buyer, right? And then your fee will be on here as the assignment fee. And I realize this may be a little bit hard to read, but your assignment fee will be on there. Okay, so just a quick recap. Your job is to go out, find distressed properties, find discounted properties with sellers who have a need to sell. It's some kind of distressed situation. You go through the discovery call script, positioning script, you close them, get the property under contract, then you go and market it for sale to an investor or cash buyer. Once you've found a buyer, they see the property, right? They like it. Then you fill out an assignment of contract. All right, and then the closing will be directly between the seller and the buyer, the investor, but you're still involved with the whole transaction, right? You help the buyer and seller with anything they need and the title company, and that's how you get paid. So that's an assignment. Okay, the other way you could do a wholesale transaction or structure it would be a double closing. Okay, so here, right, you have, I can leave it like this, right, but instead of one HUD, okay, we're going to take this off, and we're going to take that off. All right, so with a double closing, All right, this is an assignable. Well, it will be, but what you're going to do is with a double closing, all right, what's also known as a simultaneous closing, that's where you're going to have two transactions, all right? So you've got the A to B where you actually close on it from with the seller. You actually close on the property. And then on the same day, all right, you resell it B to C, right? So A to B here, and then B to C. So on the A to B, that's where you actually close on the property with the seller, and then you resell it to the buyer the same day. This wouldn't be an assignment, this would just be a regular contract. So you just have in this case, you just have a contract, all right, between you and the buyer. All right, if that makes sense. So there's two ways to do it. You can either assign your contract to the end buyer, which is another way of saying the investor, typically a cash buyer, or you can do a double closing. Okay, so wholesaling, again, finding homeowners who need to sell, contracting the property at a low price, and then reselling it at a higher price, but it's all about finding those discounted properties. Okay, it's about finding the properties where the homeowner needs to sell, and you can contract it at a low enough price, as I mentioned, that you can resell it to a retail or a cash buyer, investor, let's say, who's going to go in there and fix it up, resell it, and still make a profit. Okay, so it's all about finding discounted properties. But as I mentioned, right, we don't tell the seller that we're wholesalers. We tell them that we provide a service to them, which goes into, in the positioning call script, where we're, offering them, a cash offer. We pay all their closing costs, no realtor commissions paid by them, and closing on their timeline, right, which is important, right? If it's a pre-foreclosure or even a probate, they've got some heirs that want to sell quickly, closing on their timeline, cash sale, they don't make any repairs to the house, bought in as-is condition, no commissions, no closing costs. That's the service that we're providing to them, right? So they can avoid listing the home on the market, dealing with a realtor, paying a commission, having that uncertainty if it'll even sell at all, even if it's listed. Keep in mind 50% of real estate agents are part-time, right? It's actually 49% are part-time, 50% are full-time. So even if these sellers list the home, they may not work with a great agent, and the agent may overprice it, it may sit on the market. Heck, they may even lose the house to pre-foreclosure, okay? What's up, guys? Calvin Sibley here, and in this video I just want to do a quick introduction to wholesaling. Okay, so what is wholesaling real estate? Okay, so if you think about the word wholesaling, right, it's essentially wholesale, right? We're buying houses at a wholesale price, okay? And wholesaling exists in every industry, right? You can buy things in bulk, for example, from Costco, I'm going to talk about that in a second, or from China, right? You can buy any item in bulk at a wholesale price and then sell it at a retail price, okay? That is essentially how all of commerce works. That's how the entire US economy works, mostly from China, right? Mostly we're importing our goods from China. We've sort of outsourced all our manufacturing jobs to them. So we buy, companies buy items in bulk from China. They import those items and then sell them at retail, okay? So you can think about this, in your town, you probably have a Costco, right? You may have a Costco membership. I've got one. So when you go to Costco, what are you doing? You're buying for a cheaper price, right? You're buying items that if you drive down the street and you go to, a gas station, right, or whatever store, you're going to be paying a higher price. And why is that? Simply because Costco is a wholesaler, right? Costco is essentially selling items at a wholesale price, right? And how are they able to do that? It's because you're typically buying items in bulk, right? You're buying that, 5-gallon jug of mayonnaise, right? So your item, the price per ounce or the price per pound, right, or liter, or however you want to measure it, is going to be lower, right? So you can go, for example, to a gas station, you can buy a bottle of water for $1, or you can go to Costco and you can buy, say, 24 bottles for $6, $7. Whatever that comes out to, it ends up being like 25 cents per bottle. So you're paying 75 cents less for each bottle, right, by buying in bulk, right, which is buying wholesale. Okay, so that's an example of just with Costco and what is, wholesale, buying wholesale versus retail. Okay, in real estate, it's the same concept, right? We're contracting the properties at a lower price than they would sell for retail, right? On the retail market, right? So what we do is we target homeowners who need to sell. If you notice, I underlined need there, right? They need to sell. They have a true need, a true motivation. And then we provide a service to them, which is solving their problem property, right? And then that is essentially how we're getting paid, right? So we don't approach sellers and say, hey, I'm a wholesaler, right? We don't tell them that. What we do is we say, hey, we have a service that we provide to you to help you, with your problem property. That's where we get into the discovery call script and the positioning script, where we're finding out what's their true motivation, why do they need to sell, and how can we provide the most value to them, right? We ask them, like, what other than the price is most important to you when you sell the home, right? Everybody thinks about the price. We're more focused on the motivation, right? What's their motivation or their drive behind the reason to sell? All right, so a couple examples of homeowners who would need to sell: a pre-foreclosure, right? A pre-foreclosure where the seller may they may be about to lose the property, right? They may have a lease pendens on the property. The bank has filed a lease pendens, or there's a foreclosure process going. There may be a foreclosure sale date coming up pretty soon. And if that seller doesn't sell the property, they're going to lose the house to foreclosure, lose their money, lose their home, lose whatever equity they have. So they can come to us, right? When we talk to them, we can make them the offer, which I'm going to talk about providing the service to the seller in a minute. But we say, hey, we can come in, we can pay cash for your home, get your mortgage paid off, avoid foreclosure for you, which typically is a judgment on their credit report for like 10 years, 7 years. It's on there forever. So they definitely want to avoid losing the house to foreclosure. Another would be a probate, right? So I actually have an entire course about wholesaling probate properties in the school group. So probates are another great niche because a lot of times people will inherit a house, they own it with maybe a few siblings, maybe they're the executor of the estate, but they don't live there. It was their parents' house who passed away. They're not experienced with real estate. Maybe the house typically needs work. Maybe it was built in the 60s or 70s and the parents never updated it. They lived there for 25, 30 years. And those heirs to the estate, they just want to sell it, right? They're like, look, we don't want to fix this up. I'm not a professional landlord. I don't want to deal with any of that. So I'll just sell it to you for a price where we can get the money, divide it among the heirs, and not have to deal with this house. Okay, so that's another example of a homeowner who would need to sell. Okay, there's other examples too: code violations, tax liens, and so on, right? Could be a divorce where the family, couple splits up. They just need to get rid of this house. It's part of their marital settlement agreement, whatever you want to call it, right? With the divorce proceedings, maybe they don't want to live there. There's some bad memories. They just want to get rid of the house, right? So they need to sell it. All right, so what we do, right, is we find these sellers, we find the homeowners who need to sell. To go through the marketing modules, pay-per-click, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, all the marketing strategies I teach you how to do. And when you get the leads in, you have those calls with the seller, you go through the discovery call script, and then the positioning call, closing call, and you contract that property, right? So you're going to contract the property at a low price, right, below retail, right? So you're going to contract it, you're going to get the property under contract at a low price, and then you're going to resell it at a higher price, typically to an investor, a cash buyer, a local cash buyer, where that investor can come in and buy the property at a price that is still below retail, where there's enough room in their price, right, compared to the amount of equity the house has, where they can buy it, they can close on it, pay you your assignment fee, pay the seller what they need, and then they can rehab it, put the money into it, and then list it for retail and still make a profit. Okay, so that's the idea. We contract at a low price, and then we get the property under contract at a low price, and then we resell it to our cash buyers pretty quickly, right? Within typically the first couple of weeks to get in the contract, we're going to resell it at a higher price, and that's how we make our assignment fee.